Staff were just asking for a better way to escalate safety concerns and engage leadership in a transparent, bi-directional way.
Welcome to Key into Quality, the Mayo Clinic podcast, where we explore the people, practices, and principles that elevate healthcare quality and safety. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dr. Tim Morgenthaler, a professor of medicine here at Mayo Clinic and a vice chair of Mayo Clinic Quality. In this episode of Key into Quality, we're asking this question: what if every team on every shift had a structured, consistent way to surface safety concerns and know that they'd been heard? Could we change how we connect, communicate, and act on risks before harm occurs? Can we connect the front line with the leadership? Today, we're going to explore our evolving work with tiered huddles, which is a structured approach to frontline communication that's helping us rebuild trust, close safety loops, and keep safety top of mind. It's not perfect, it's not finished, but the momentum is real and the lessons are worth sharing. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dr. Tim Morgenthaler, a professor of medicine here at Mayo Clinic and a vice chair of Mayo Clinic Quality. Co-hosting today's conversation is Sherry Nemec. Sherry?
Welcome, everyone. I'm Sherry Nemec, Consultation and Relationship Manager for Quality at Mayo Clinic. So today we're talking about a couple of processes that you mentioned. And, when I talk with healthcare organizations across the country, everybody says, oh, yeah, we're doing that, right? We're doing huddles. We have visual management boards. But then usually the next question is, well, how do you know that what you're doing is effective?
Yeah.
And then they pause and ponder a bit.
Yeah. Sherry, in the wake of COVID, our safety culture survey really revealed something that we at Mayo Clinic could not ignore. Our staff were not as confident as they had once been. And really our safety culture, we were worried, had maybe eroded a little bit. So at Mayo Clinic, that is not something we would accept. We're acting. The idea really isn't new, but what we're building is a way to use safety huddles and some visual management boards as a way to help be more consistent, transparent, and connected across our entire organization. It's still a work in progress, and some areas are just starting and others are gaining traction, but already we're starting to see how this simple daily habit can really create change. In this episode, we're going to talk about the journey, the challenges, and what we're learning along the way. Joining us today is Dr. Chase Sims, who's a physician leader for quality and actually is the chair of the Rochester Quality Subcommittee. He's a consultant in anesthesiology and critical care medicine at Rochester. Dr. Sims, would you mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. I can say personally that even before I came into my role in quality, I was listening to this podcast. So I'm also joining as a bit of a fanboy. So the pleasure is all mine to be talking with you today. So my name again is Chase Sims. I'm originally from Tupelo, Mississippi. You will only know that town as the home of Elvis Presley. I came
That's
to
right.
Mayo Clinic Rochester in 2016 to do my critical care fellowship, and I fell in love and have been here ever since.
Well, we're so happy to have you here and
Yes.
joining us today.
Welcome aboard. Chase, maybe you could just tell us, how did you first get interested in this particular problem that we're dealing with today? I mean, how did you start to think about it? How did you decide how to deal with it? Tell us your story.
Mayo Clinic is world renowned for its exceptional care and collaborative, mission-driven culture. When I first came to Mayo Clinic and did my fellowship, it was only a couple of months before I realized there's something truly special going on at this place. And a lot of it is rooted in the core values, of course, that we try to model every day, but it's in the teamwork, just people coming together regardless of the circumstance, to help each other and to support patient care. And that's kind of what really embodies and drives our mission of the needs of the patient come first. So when I took this role of chair of the Rochester Quality Subcommittee, my goal was to build strong relationships with our care teams because we had just had a very disruptive event. And we were fortunate to have Dr. Gandhi from Prescani recently talk to us at a quality conference about what we could expect after there's major disruptors in healthcare or industry. And the first thing that happens is, and we saw this, a lot of our experience goes away. People say, well, now it's just my time. I'm going to retire maybe a little earlier than I thought, or whatever the case may be. That, of course, leads to staffing shortages. With staffing shortages, people start to lose track of standard work, and they don't always know what other units are doing, and they feel in a silo like they're kept in the dark with decisions. And a lot of that is just people are trying to survive. People are trying to take as best care they can of their patients under the circumstances. And I think that was likely a strong contributor to what we saw with the breakdown in our culture of safety. Staff were just asking for a better way to escalate safety concerns and engage leadership in a transparent, bi-directional way. And so, with that, I was very fortunate to find that that work had already begun, kind of what you mentioned. In November, our excellent quality team, both enterprise and in collaboration with Rochester, had already started the process of tiered huddles and visual management boards.
So, engaged in challenges like every healthcare organization across this country, right? Seeing all those same things, recognized that there was a need to do something. You mentioned the power of teamwork already. So, who did you start to involve and bring together to really move forward in what you wanted to work on to help with the situation?
The fantastic part of rolling this out is I just had to jump on the train and hold on. This was already an enterprise priority led by our Chief Value Officer, Dr. Sean Dowdy, our Quality Administrator, Sebastian Devkarin. We had a wonderful project manager in Ali Kanoy Ilias. And of course, as I came into my role, I very quickly understood that I was part of an amazing team. And they continue to inspire me every day. And a lot of their hard work has gone into this. And so, with that, if you're going to have any kind of tiered huddle process, it has to, of course, be multidisciplinary and collaborative. When you define your stakeholders, you have to get everyone from the frontline units to executive leadership on board. Because if any one person has a safety concern, of course, you can deal with it locally, but you want to be able to escalate that up to a resource or a supervisor or someone who can help directly with that issue and resolve it quickly. So, with that, my quality administrator for Rochester, Pauline By, my vice chair of nursing, Rachel Moody, and then our operations manager, Mara Turner, I'll tell you, I can't brag enough about this group. Our performance improvement advisors, Sunite Herring, Katie Hutchins, Katie Morgan, Nana Tiwa, and Kelsey Wolf, they were already on the ground engaging with different units to try to understand who needs to be involved in this process and what is it going to look like. And honestly, their effort is what spurred the momentum that we needed to go forward.
As you're getting this group started and I got to overhear some of these meetings and so forth, you're putting your plans together. What are some of the big challenges that you're encountering along the way?
Yeah, you bring up a great point about meetings. I forgot to completely mention, that's my fault. Dr. Morgenthau, you are heavily involved with me in this. So is Marion Lee, the administrator from Florida. One of the big challenges is the huddles are not a new concept. Other healthcare and non-healthcare organizations have done these. The issue, and you were a driving force of this in our group, is there's not a lot of good literature or best practices where people have shared their results or their success. Kind of what Sherry mentioned at the beginning of the introduction is, well, how do you know that what you're doing is the right thing? And so the biggest challenge is Mayo is a very large institution. We have a lot of interdependencies and units that have to come together, and some of them can be kind of grouped together based on the specialties that they serve, but others may have processes that are different. So how can you create a standardization? And then how can you assess these huddles over time to prove to staff that what you're doing is, I've been heard, you've done something about it, and it's been done in a reasonable amount of time. So that's really maturity in motion, or a maturity matrix. And that probably, as we start, and you can comment as well, making adjustments, ensuring quality control, and what outcomes do we want to see as we start this, was probably the biggest challenge.
So, let's dig into that maturity, that matrix kind of idea a little bit more. So, how does that guide the work? How does that continue to propel this work forward?
It does a few things. In anesthesia and critical care, there's always pressure to avoid mistakes. That's something that we try. But when you do something like huddles, the hardest part is just going to be starting, getting organized, what to expect, what can staff expect. And with that, you expect some mistakes. And you know that you're going to adjust and you're going to improve over time. So once our performance improvement advisors began to observe huddles and gather feedback, they were able to see and get direct staff concerns that we would like this discipline to be more involved. We would like to hear more about these safety issues coming through. Here's the way we hope to get that bi-directional feedback. And so as we develop a maturity matrix, the question is, how do we know that it started? How do we know it's progressing, that it's evolving, and then it's optimized in a way? And a lot of that, again, because the literature is so scarce, you have to do what your staff are saying is enough. And so are 80% of your available staff that day showing up to huddle? Does that feel like it's enough? If not, you add more. Are there things that we're missing? Do we have pharmacy to help us with updates on medications that may be in short supply, or physical therapy that say, we're a little short staffed today? So how do you get those updates done in real time in a systematic, structured way?
Yeah, as you're talking about the maturity model, that's something that I was participating in trying to help form for this huddling and leadership rounding. And I was pretty influenced by Patterson's book, The Influencer. I remember when he came to speak actually to us, many years ago, one of the things he talked about for making big changes in an organization is you first have to decide, what does success actually look like? Because we can't start changing to that until we really have a clear picture of, well, what is that? And so that's, I think, something that our group talked about a lot, was trying to understand, well, this is a process. We're doing it for a purpose. What does success look like in this process? And so that was really sort of the foundation of starting to say, what would a really good huddle look like? Or what would a good huddle process look like for a given unit versus, well, maybe not as good? What's beginner stage and what's advanced stage and so forth? So that's kind of what we've been doing. So I'm kind of curious, Chase, as you've done this work, what has surprised you along the way?
One of my favorite surprises is how teams are beginning to take these huddles and make it their own. It's a place of gathering in the morning centrally where staff from the night shift or the day shift or whoever can come together and they can just have a little bit of fellowship. When we first rolled out tiered huddles, a lot of staff were accessing the main huddle board where they would put cards in about issues that come up, and then leaders would see those cards and assign due dates and give feedback. They would just be doing those at random computers, but the engagement built so quickly. I was surprised. It was almost like a ripple effect. Staff started to feel like they mattered, leadership began to get insights, and a big place suddenly can listen no matter what. So one thing that was important though is, and it does well to pair with tiered huddles, is the digital visual management boards. So when we started to license those and install them at locations, now that adds again even more to that central fellowship. But now visually, everyone is able to see the important information in front of them. Specifically, and I know the 6 Mary Bry MICU does a fantastic job of this. You can see quality metrics. How long has it been since we've had a fall? Pressure injury concerns. A lot of those hospital acquired injuries, they discuss openly. A lot of other metrics that are very important to them, they put on full display. And then when they bring up safety issues on the cards, they can read the comment. So it feels very open and transparent. And I think staff, maybe this is just something about human beings, but when you visually see something, it makes you feel good because it's out in the open and you feel like you matter and your voice matters. And we will continue to see that, I think, as we roll these out further.
These are advanced descendants of the old
Mhm.
posters that you'd put up, but you'd only produce those maybe once a month or something like that.
Or
Whereas,
writing on a whiteboard.
yeah, writing on a whiteboard,
Yeah.
which there's nothing wrong with that. There's
No,
nothing wrong
no.
with that. But these are being updated kind of in real time. You're mentioning cards, Chase, but maybe you could just, for our listeners, what is a card and where does it go?
Sherry, as you were just mentioning, you brought up a great point. In contrast to someone writing down an issue on a sticky note or a piece of paper, those get lost all the time. They vanish into a void. You never see them again. A card is some way that you can interact with the lens board. You write in your safety concern, and it literally is like a digital post-it note that pops up on the lens display with your verbatim text on what's going on. And then, everyone who has access to those boards has access to that card, a leader specifically, and they can interact with it to say, thank you for bringing this up, or they can push it to, say it's a facilities issue. They can push it to a supervisor in facilities and say, hey, this is the issue that we're having. How quickly can we fix this? So it's a digital interface but it's also very much right out in the open.
You know, Chase, before we kind of go on to another question, we asked, what surprised you along the way? And you mentioned, just how quickly units are
Mm.
making it their own. But maybe you could share with our listeners, Kubler-Ross always used to talk about the stages of grief. This is a change we're asking people to do differently. What would be your description of the stages of acceptance to, oh, we're going to start doing safety huddles and here's a lens board?
We had a great conversation with the nurse managers of the MICU again, who have an excellent example of how this has evolved over time. It's inevitable. Change is very difficult. I always say that one thing humans fight for, it's just our nature, is routine. If we have 10 steps to our routine, we are going to fight to hold on to those 10 steps because everything else feels like it's just, I don't have time for it. It's disrupting my day and I got to get through this. But if we can slowly show you that you can do all those things in 5 steps, then I think people realize, okay, my day is getting easier now. So when we first started to roll out tiered huddles, there was almost a default to the operational element. How many staff do we have? How many shifts do we need breaks for? Just things that go along with your day-to-day processes, because I feel like staff were trying to incorporate those huddle reports into safety. And so actually you weren't spending a lot of time talking about issues, but then over time, you supervisors engaged, leaders engaged, we mature these and we say, but we want to hear what's on top of your mind. What happened last night that we should look for to improve? And they said, well, there actually was water leaking out of a window in the 5th bed or whatever the case may be. And now all of a sudden that window gets fixed and staff see, holy cow, like that was quick. And then they start to bring those other concerns forward. The next thing you know, your life is getting easier. Your shifts are getting easier because the things that used to take a long time to figure out, or you just wondered, did they get figured out at all? Now you're seeing the results and success from that.
I have heard countless positive comments about how staff just love the process, the engagement, the connection, all the things that you were talking about, that how they feel like that they've been heard and so important to manage things like burnout. So where do you go from here? I'm curious about how you continue to grow the either process or both.
Where to go from here, I think, will depend on staff. Our staff truly are our most precious resource. We wouldn't want to push things forward without everyone feeling comfortable. Currently, when we huddle every day on what we call tier 3, which is our supervisors and leaders in the Rochester practice, we get report out from all the tier 2 huddles, which can be orthopedics, pediatrics. They're grouped in different areas, inpatient, hopefully eventually outpatient, but certainly critical care is a big part of that. And so these are really our cohort presentations. Not all of them have digital management or visual management boards, and not all of them have evolved or matured in the same way. And so with that, we are going to be on the ground, continually assessing, rounding with them, meeting with them. What can we help you with? What resources can we provide? And it'll take some time. I think the rollout for the lens scaling timeline puts us through the first of next year before we'll comfortably get all of these boards rolled out to the different areas. And I know Allie and our team are going to be sitting down with them for 6 weeks to just walk them through all the functionality, make sure they're comfortable. Because again, just respecting that change is hard and change takes time. And the last thing that we'll want to do is add a burden to their daily life. But hopefully, as we continue to move these forward, we'll do it in a way where staff don't feel like it's overwhelming. Or if we suddenly get the feedback that we need to take a pause and re-educate or retrain in a group that's already done with it, let's go back, let's do it again. Because when we talk about these things out loud and we say, I think staff really enjoy this, I want it to be true. And I think our leaders want it to be true. And one thing that Dr. Gandhi said again is after staff shortages, the next thing you have to do when you get your staffing up is recover your teams. And I'm really hoping that the next evolution of tiered huddle and visual management boards is helping teams to feel like they're recovered, getting back to where they want to be and finding that passion again for what they do, which is just taking care of the patient. That's why we're here. And if this tool can help us do that, that's exactly what we want. And I think it's important to understand too that we need to be adaptable with what we're calling the display function. We call it lens right now because all of these different versions or options were trialed, and this was the best in functionality. But eventually, maybe we develop our own, but the process is still going to be the same. So if we use different terminology 5 years from now, that it's still going to be a visual management board,
Sure.
just what it will evolve into.
As you think about this program, it's been very complicated. We are still on the way. We're being very transparent about that. But there are organizations out there that maybe haven't taken those first steps. Some of them might be listening to us. What would you say to an organization that wants to start work in this area?
That's a great question. And I would say that the hardest part for us was just get started. We're fortunate that we had the culture of safety survey. We had heard enough through supervisor reports that we knew our staff wanted a more collaborative, transparent, kind of bi-directional feedback mechanism, but that really kind of kicked everything off. So if organizations are hearing that, and I imagine they are, because worldwide we experience a very significant disruptive event, just start. Have a small huddle, pick a time, and just hear what your staff have to say. And then, of course, one of my proud things about working here at Mayo Clinic is that how collaborative we are. So reach out to us. We will happily answer an email or give you advice on where to start. But I would also caution organizations that the progress will be steady and you'll make mistakes and it will take revision after revision. I mean, you, Dr. Morgenthaler, were so important to maturing our tiered huddles and developing that matrix because it was very, very difficult. And so with anything that provides large change, you have the opportunity for large mistakes. And so the biggest way, though, is just start building trust with your staff, helping them see the decisions that you're making, giving them direct feedback on things that they find to be important, and then what specific actions you're taking. Over time, that trust will continue to build.
Wise words.
Wow. I just want to express gratitude in a couple of different areas. First of all, you are by far not the first chief quality officer at Mayo Clinic Rochester that I've worked with. I've been in this a long time. But one of the things that I just really appreciate about you is how well you listen to those that you're working with and to the practice. And so I just want to express my gratitude to you for your leadership in that way and the way that you lead. Thanks for taking the time to share this experience with us and your humility and just kind of being very transparent that yep, it's a great idea. It's showing some fruit, but we haven't perfected it yet, and we got a ways to go. And thanks for your wise advice to our listeners about get started. Sherry, did you have any other questions that you wanted to engage with?
No, just thank you, Dr. Sims, for joining us today. Really appreciate you being here.
Truly, the pleasure is all mine. I am very thankful for you both, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you. The pleasure's ours. So, as we've heard today, tiered huddles really aren't a silver bullet, and they're not yet fully mature across every corner of our organization. But we are hopeful that this will continue to build a better culture, and we believe it is helping us rebuild a better foundation of trust, surface issues, and very importantly, as Dr. Sims mentioned, it's helping our coworkers feel heard and helping us hear them and helping them hear us. So it's really about that teamwork that makes the magic. This is steady culture work. That means it's hard work and it requires patience, persistence, a willingness to improve out loud, and a willingness to make some mistakes along the way. Every time a concern's raised and addressed, every team member can feel heard, and then we can take a step toward a safer, more responsive care environment. This brings us to the end of today's episode. We're grateful you joined us, and we hope the conversation offered useful insights and practical ideas that you can take back to your own organization. At Key Into Quality, our mission is to explore actionable ways to improve healthcare quality and safety for every patient, every day, everywhere. We know that even small steps can lead to meaningful change. If you found this episode helpful, we'd appreciate your support. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Share this with friends and relatives and coworkers. Wherever you listen, let them know. And please spread the word to others who are working to advance quality in their settings. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay committed, stay curious, keep working toward better care. Goodbye.